Hey everyone, welcome to the Industry Show. I'm your host Nitin Bajaj, and joining us today is Rohitava Banerjee.
Happy to be here.
Can I call you Rohit?
Rohit's just fine.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for being with us.
Glad to be here.
Welcome back from India.
Yeah, thank you. That was a very hearty welcome. I appreciate it.
All right. So, get us started. Tell us your journey up to this point in about 90 seconds.
Well, 1996, I came into this world. We came to the United States when I was 4 years old. I've always drawn since I was a kid, but Indian, so parents wanted me to be a doctor, an engineer, or a scientist. Unfortunately, I'm not good at math, so that never worked out, and I passed out at the sight of blood, so neither would have ever been viable. The older I got, the more into the creative stuff I got into, and then around about the time I was 13, 14, I went to India one time and I saw my first fashion show, and ever since then I've just been hooked on this stuff. So I eventually applied to Parsons. I went to Parsons, finished up last year, and right now I'm just working on my own brand, even though I actually started my brand around 4 years ago, so while I was in school, my freshman year. And
Nice.
that's how we got here.
Here you are.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, before we delve any deeper into your brand and the design philosophy, let's lighten things up a bit.
Sure.
Just
Happy to.
you've traveled a bit.
Yeah.
What's your favorite city?
New York, definitely New York. It's really hard to live anywhere else if it kind of grows on you, a bit like a
Yes.
foot fungus.
Yes.
So you spend some time there,
I
and
love
then
the
you
description.
realize that over time you can't really live anywhere else. It's very convenient sometimes, it's very inconvenient sometimes, but then it just sets a pace to your life where it's very hard to stay anywhere else for a longer time.
Such an apt comparison, foot fungus. I love that.
You could say the same about Kolkata if you wanted to, honestly. A little bit more accurately, maybe.
One person that you have met or you would like to meet?
Man, I'd like to meet people who want to buy my stuff. Always. That's
Just one?
as many as possible. But seriously, dead or alive? Or
Doesn't matter.
okay.
Yeah.
Alexander McQueen, that would have been nice. Sadly, he's not with us anymore.
Yeah.
But if I had the chance to meet anybody, it would definitely be him.
Any book or last two books you read that you want to share?
I'm a big Stephen King fan.
Okay.
So the last thing I read was Pet Sematary,
Mm-hmm.
and right before that, I finished reading Misery. I think Pet Sematary probably set in a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I love horror novels, so Stephen King.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So, tell us about, you said you were 14 or 15 when you went to India and you saw a fashion show.
I think 13 would be a little
13?
bit more. Yeah.
And so what about it, other than an escape from math, got you attracted to it, and how did you think of this could be my career?
Well, at first, it just felt like I was doing something bad, so the rebellion of it was just really intriguing to me. And, since my parents were hell-bent on making me some sort of cookie-cutter Indian kid, that's how I really felt like I was
Were they more
being
heavy
myself a little bit more.
Were they
Sorry?
more heavy on you being a doctor or an engineer?
Doctor. My
Doctor
mom's side of the
okay.
family, it's doctor for days.
Okay.
I mean, it's going to be
Because it's either of
one
the
after
two,
another.
right?
Oh, if I'm particularly disgraceful, maybe
Yeah.
engineer.
Yeah.
So
Right. Yeah.
yeah, it's not, both of them ended up being accountants, much to their own parents' dismays. I guess it runs in the family. But when I first started doing it, it was just a really good creative outlet where I really felt like I was learning a lot more about myself than I ever had been before. And at the same time, it really, really pissed them off. So it kind of worked out.
So, did you meet someone there to kind of get some more closer to how do you do this and make this a career?
Yeah, actually, my uncle's a fashion designer. I'm sure you've heard of Sabyasachi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit here and
A little
there.
bit
Yeah.
here and there. He's had a good year. But yeah, if it wasn't for him, I'm just so grateful to have had the kind of role model that I had in the person that he was. He's extremely humble. He's very
Yes.
creative, and he was really, really supportive in the beginning when I first came to him and I showed him those sketches because for almost 8 months before that, I was just constantly drawing, and my sister was like hiding my sketches under the floorboards because Dad would find them and tear them up, and just all sorts of things. And so when I finally showed it to him, my parents felt this sort of security, like, okay, well, he seems to believe in the kid, like maybe we should also give
So
it
it was
go.
his validation that sold it to them?
You know, or validation, it's a big deal for us. So it was really, really good to have someone like that on my side of the court. I think that really made a difference, and honestly, it changed my life.
And so you came back from there, and then you applied to Parsons?
Well, yeah, when, around time to apply to school kind of came about. So I'd say like around 3 years after that, 3-4 years.
But you were pretty set that this is what you wanted to do by then?
I realized there was nothing else I could do for better or worse. Yeah.
And by the time your parents were supportive, okay with you going to Parsons?
Getting there. They were definitely getting there. But when I got in there, they're like, okay, I guess
this is it.
A retirement fund. Kiss up. Goodbye. Yeah.
But so once you got back, as you thought through the process, maybe not then, maybe later, a couple of years later, the thought of transitioning this from being a hobby, a passion, to a career where you would have expectations, not as much as feeding.
Start to get more practical. Yep.
Right, and returning the retirement funds back and so on.
Student loans, retirement funds. One at a time, Nick, please.
Did that put? What was that thought process like? Right, I mean, this is no longer going to be a hobby, a passion, something that I enjoy, but there's going to be commitments. So making that choice. What was kind of going on?
Well, when I had to plant both feet in reality and realize that this wasn't just a creative endeavor, but this was also going to be a business. Right. I started to look at other luxury brand models, and this is going to sound kind of odd because I'm in fashion, but something that really inspired me was Mercedes-Benz. They have an aspirational car, which is the S-Class, and then from that comes the E-Class and the C-Class. Right. They create takedown versions, what I would say selling pieces of the fantasy as compared to the entire aspiration, which might not be fully consumable by somebody. The way that I translate that is basically I create something for the runway that might seem a little bit more avant-garde, something that gets people dreaming, and then I integrate that sort of larger fantasy into smaller pieces,
like
be it clothing, accessories, shoes, so on, that still has that aspect of the bigger picture, but it's just a little bit more approachable and consumable for people. So that's how I make money. Otherwise, I'd be very destitute, and that would not be good.
So we have a question from the audience. What is your vision statement? Right. I mean, I think you were kind of talking to that just a bit in the aspirational.
Well, I wouldn't call that my vision statement. That's just my creed statement. Ever since I was a kid, I'm a sucker for a good story. I was bullied a lot when I was a kid because we were all immigrants, and I had Asperger's, so it was this whole sort of thing where interacting with people in the first place was not an option that I could automatically fall back upon. And so I would spend a lot of time just with my head inside of books and reading about great people who would kind of just inspire me to keep going on a day-to-day basis. And the stories that really appealed to me were the stories of great women. These weren't my stories, these were their stories, and those stories just kept me inspired, and they kept me wanting to keep doing whatever I could, because back then, look, especially historically speaking, we live in a pretty extraordinary time where we've come far. There's a lot further we could go, but being rebellious for women 500 years ago is something that could get them killed. So if they could suck it up and keep doing what they did and turn the wheel forward in some way or another, I started to realize that I should definitely just hone in and start being the person that I am, because I had the opportunity to be. I mean, they didn't, and they still made a statement. So the older I got, and when I decided to be a fashion designer, what happened was I felt this profound sense of gratitude, where I wanted to share those stories that inspired me, particularly the stories of women that inspired me. Again, they are not my stories, these are theirs. And I just saw myself as a messenger who translates these stories that are very relevant to the modern day, creates historical parallels to what's going on right now, and that's how I think they fit into the world, by creating collections that are inspired by these great women.
Nice. So, you also talked about, talk to us a bit more about the reflection of your own personal challenges and what you felt and what made you relate to these stories of great women, and how did that end up into the creative outstream into your designs?
Well, the stories are just rocket fuel for creativity,
Yes.
to be honest with you. I mean, living a high contrast life to what was expected to be the norm of whichever time period anybody lives in, really. I mean, it's something where you have people that are doing things that just kind of makes you turn around for a second and be like, okay, this stands out, this stands out.
Yeah.
Everything stands out because
Yeah.
they're doing things that were completely against the grain.
Yes.
And so I related to that in my life by doing things like, for example, even wanting to be a creative. In my family, it's sure I had somebody who it already worked out for, but there were certain things that were expected of me and a certain path I was supposed to follow that I definitely rubbed up against and didn't follow at the end of the day. And also, I'm never going to be able to understand the fullness of their suffering because they lived in a time where, they really didn't have any say at all.
Right.
There were like pockets of places, certain examples that, women had a little bit more independence, be it in ancient Egypt or certain aspects of Indian history as well. Lots of places, but it just wasn't the norm.
In the general context, right?
It was that sort of using, it was the ingenuity of those people, making the best of a really, really shitty situation that kind of spoke to me, where I didn't have a lot of friends when I was a kid. I had to find my way and almost make my own friends through the stories that I read, the things that inspired me. So just kind of having to improvise and make the best of a bad situation, that's what I really learned, I think.
That's deep.
Oh, you're about to be very disappointed for the rest of this interview.
So, who was your first customer? Once you said, this is what I'm going to do, well, even before that, what was your first commercial design? I mean, I'm guessing the rest of it was, you were forcing your relatives, your parents, your sister to wear what you just made. I'm just making that up, but I'm guessing that's how it starts.
You make it sound a lot easier than it actually. No, my parents don't wear my clothes. My sister definitely doesn't wear my clothes. But my first customers were just people who came to the show. They believed in my vision, and I'm really, really grateful that they happened to be there, because having a little bit of, what's the word for it? It starts with an A. We just said the word. What was it? Validation.
Okay.
Having some sort of validation from somebody.
You threw me off. It doesn't start with an A. Yeah, approval. Okay.
I was thinking approval. I'm like, all right, synonym. Where are we going? But some sort of, somebody actually believes in this enough to spend money on it.
Right.
I'm not going to lie. Like there's part of me where it just feels really good about that.
Yes.
It makes me want to keep going and doing stuff where, all right, people actually like this stuff enough for me to make more of this stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice. And so you did. Yeah. What fashion show was this? Was this the New York Fashion Week?
Yeah, this was the New York Fashion Week. Yeah.
How did you get there?
I designed a collection. I happened to stumble upon a very good PR firm, and
just stumble upon. You didn't.
You
didn't work.
What?
You didn't work hard to find them. You just stumbled upon them.
No, I actually worked very hard to find them. There were a series of trial and error situations, some quite gruesome. And eventually I found somebody who helped me walk on that path to kind of get this first and second opportunity. And then after that, I kind of honed in school for a while. I decided that I was going to do something that I was able to put more time into. And that's why I'm really excited for this show that's going to come up towards the end of October and on the 30th. I feel like I've had quite a bit of time over the summer after I finished up with all that to really just put time into it, and I'm really excited for people to see it.
Let's talk about those shows for a sec.
Sure.
Tell us more. When are the shows? Where are they going to be?
Sure.
What collection are you going to have?
So the first one is going to be in October, the earlier part of October, I think the 13th. That's going to be in Indian fusion, like a little bit of Western wear inside of it, but this is my first endeavor into actually doing more Indian clothes. And then the one on the 31st is, well, the 30th is going to be Western wear completely. So that's going to be more along the lines of narrative integration and like utilizing what's a little bit more of my vision statement. The first one is it's a capsule collection, and it's kind of jumping off the cliff for me a little bit because I haven't done Indian clothes before, but I'm very proud of my heritage, and I'm also very proud of my Western heritage. It's something that it's I hate being painted into a box.
Right.
You know, I'm Indian American. Both of those words are very valuable to me. And so what I've experienced in the past was whenever I thought about making Indian clothes, people would tell me I have no idea what I'm doing. And when I tried to design Western clothes, people would also say, why don't you try designing Indian clothes? So I was hearing go back to your country from like both sides. And you know, it's quite
that's
confusing.
What you did, right?
What?
And that's what you did. You went back to India.
No, I came back and forth, and I realized that I need them both. I
Yes.
can't
Why
live
pick,
without
right?
doing one or the other. So
Yeah.
I'm very adamant about doing both things at this point in time, where I feel a lot more confident in the way that I do both these days. So I think it's about time for me to just hone in and embrace both my heritages to the full extent I can.
What are your favorite colors and materials?
That's changes very, very often.
Oh, sure.
Depends on the collection. For the Western wear right now, I'm actually looking at transition from Gothic color palettes to Renaissance color palettes. So, so since one ended up succeeding the other, I find that intermediary point to be very, very important, but also to the fuller narrative of the collection that's going to come out. Then I can't tell you too much about that. Sorry, but for the Indian clothes. Yeah, absolutely. Give somebody. I'll give you a little bit to nibble on, but not too much. But as far as the Indian clothes are going right now, I've been looking a lot at Rajasthan and the kind of the architecture that's over there. Jaipur is a beautiful city, and so there's so much to be learned there from the craft and the textiles. And I have some very, if I don't mention them, I have some very proud Rajput friends who will always make a point to say how Rajput they are. And the most beautiful part about that is they share so much of their culture with me and the stories that make such a legendary warrior culture. You know, so that kind of warrior culture, and then making a women's wear collection out of it, it just kind of clicked for me. It's something that really talks to the kind of designer that I am. So in terms of the Indian clothes, that's what's going to be coming out of there. A lot more color than I've ever done before. So I'm excited for
so
that.
rich and deep, and so much variety there.
Oh, so much. So much. Yeah.
Give us a sense of your operations. You know, you have a setup in India.
Yeah.
You have some plans to launch.
I have a workshop with 12 children. Not actual. No, child labor is bad. Don't do that. That's horrible. But yeah, 12 fully grown adults who happen to be my children. And I'm quite fond of every single one of them because they just bring something so interesting to the table from their own backgrounds as well. So 3 embroiderers, 3 tailors, 1 pattern master, 2 hand workers. God, I'm missing somebody or another. I feel like this is one of these things. Yeah, exactly. Where I'm just like, no, there's an Aesop riddle about this somewhere or another. But yeah, myself included, but not myself included 12. There's, I'm sure somebody better at math will get on my ass for whatever number that I gave so far. But yeah, I'm really happy to work with all of them. Yeah.
And the setup, all of them are in
under one roof. Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a little workshop on the roof of my ancestral home that we turned into another room.
Nice.
And so we have like an entire floor that's a workshop. I love being there. The only thing is like India, well, Kolkata gets me quite ill if I stay for an extended period of time, hard water, whatnot. So there you go.
And how often do you go back, and do you?
As often as I can. And now that I'm going to get more time, I'm going to be going even more often. I spend around 3-4 months a year over there, either continuously or spread apart. And then because of just technology these days, we have like WhatsApp, video chat, everything that we could possibly need to run a business from a different country, minus sleep.
Yes.
It's one of those things where very grateful for the time that I've gotten to live in and the opportunities that I've found in India. Yeah.
So talking about lack of sleep, tell us a bit more about some of the challenges, some of the opportunities that you've faced as an entrepreneur, as someone who's working on something you're passionate about,
Okay.
and how do you overcome those or just kind of deal with it?
Well, just going on to lack of sleep, it's really, fashion designers have this kind of masochistic streak where they just make themselves do things that their bodies just can't really handle. And in my younger days,
I love how you're talking about in third person.
What?
Third person, fashion designers, not me.
I have to separate it in some way or another. It makes it a little bit more palatable. But it's one of those things where fashion designers, me included, have this kind of... Colbert said something that was really, really interesting in a podcast interview with Conan, where the value of suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, don't do things that are actual self-harm, but I'm saying having something in your mind where if I work really hard and actually put myself through the things that I need to put myself through, and there's something good at the end of the tunnel, I'm gonna 100% do that.
Right.
That was a mentality that's kind of, I wouldn't say eased up, it's become a little bit more physically rational over the years. I think when I was younger, I could stay awake for like a couple days straight. I can't really do that sort of thing anymore. I've seen the toll that it's taken on my body. So that was always a struggle. Like, how do I maintain like physical health and also like the pressures of a high pressure job? So what I did was, it's really important to take care of yourself. Take care of yourself in terms of like diet, exercise, sleep, and set the proper deadlines. Being an organized fashion designer is probably the only way to be a healthy fashion designer. At the end of the day, if you have timetables set up where, after this many hours of work, you're actually getting the amount of rest that your body needs. You have time in the morning to get in a bit of a run. Proper times to actually eat. Just like running any business, you have to make sure that you're actually keeping yourself up so that you could actually keep your work going. So that's one of the challenges that hopefully with a little bit of maturity I'm able to tackle better these days.
Maintain the discipline and
physical discipline, mental discipline, everything needs to be maintained to run a proper business.
Anything specifically in terms of India went to this huge demonetization.
Oh, buddy, where do we start? So we couldn't. So luckily we had money at home because like everybody keeps it safe in India. But the thing is, like trading in like all these dollars for like, man, it was a mess. Just like weeks and weeks and weeks of like giving people like subsidized salaries and like keeping track of everything and making sure that everybody gets their money, because look, we run by every way a sustainable business where we think about the workers just as much as we think about ourselves. Like, they're working in relative amount of comfort that most people don't, a lot of people don't consider when opening up a workshop over there. That's why, look, I've seen so many documentaries about like sweatshops and so on, and like the way that people are just mistreated. Well, the Indian laborer, if you don't develop a sort of mutual respect and a trust, it's they won't do shit for you. Ever. Or they'll just like, they'll make their money and then they'll let go, and you're going to be on the cycle of constantly replacing your worker like month after month. And the people who've been with me have been with me since the very beginning. Yeah, we've had like maybe personal changes like here and there, but I could count them all on 4 fingers really. So demonetization was a big challenge because that was where that trust was really strained at one point, because getting money from the bank was just as much of a challenge. Right. So and if you're running a small business, forget about it. So we really saw the way that we treated them over several years pay off, because all of them stuck around till the very end. They knew they would get their money. So
it's great.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself 2, maybe 3 years out?
2-3 years out, hopefully a little bit wealthier. So I want to grow my business and maybe open up a little bit of a workshop in Los Angeles. I'm never going to close a thing in India because the craftsmen there are like family to me at this point. They've been along with me on this whole trip, and I'm immortally grateful to them, like eternally grateful. Sorry, I'm not going to live forever, unfortunately, but it's one of these things where it's again, like I was saying about my mixed heritage, I want something here as well as having something there. I'd love to get into retail a little bit more. I'd love to make clothes that are even more approachable than what my own little algorithm for making those clothes are these days. So I want to make sure that more and more people know about the brand and are obviously buying from the brand. But I want to keep sharing my stories.
Right.
Well, not my stories, but these stories that
The
are like
stories
really
that need to
important
be
to
shared,
people, that
right.
need to be shared, and
Yeah.
stories that are relevant. Yeah.
How's your, I mean, we kind of talked about this in different aspects, but specifically, how has your Indian ethnicity helped shape you for good or worse, right?
Yeah.
Especially in the business context,
Mm-hmm.
in the decisions you make, in how you look at things.
I'm not Gujarati, so
Well,
I
yeah.
can't really get into that. Yeah, but
we can train you on that.
Oh yeah, I really hope so.
We
No,
have a
but-
Gujarati in the house.
God, I really need a Gujarati. No, but the thing is, my Indian heritage has taught me to value people from all aspects and walks of life. There's such, okay, visually speaking and physically, the way that our country is made up is very colorful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have people who offer a variety of things that can all be utilized to make something that's bigger than us. I mean that's what our republic
true.
was based off of.
Yes.
That's what several empires in the past was
Mhm.
based off of. Everybody
Yeah.
has their role. And now more than ever, it's become more democratic, where there's social mobility and
Yes.
so many things that come with it. So I think the value of the Indian worker is going up. And I think because of that, people are more willing to work with people,
Mhm.
work to their full potential as compared to just being a means to an end before.
Right.
Workers are treated a little bit better, hopefully, than before. We certainly do, and we've seen the fruits of that.
Mhm.
So having that rich craftsman heritage, rich diversity heritage,
Yeah.
you know, it really informs us business as it grows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice. What drives you? Right. I mean, yeah, money is one, but what
That's the only
motivates
thing.
you?
No. Yeah.
I know, but what makes you get up and go through these challenges, issues, lack of sleep, and still want to do
No,
this,
I
right?
think this is
Right.
it's much better. Stories that need to be told.
Yeah.
We live in what we're starting to see heinous political treatment of women in our
Yes.
country right now.
Yeah.
What's going on in terms of state bans on abortion,
Mhm.
the way our president talks about women.
Yeah.
I mean, now more than ever, people need these stories, and
Yes.
most importantly, these are stories that women have written themselves.
Right.
Right. So why not pay that forward? If this has
Mhm.
helped anybody in their lives before,
Yeah.
they need to definitely say that, yeah, this is how I got through it, and
Yes.
if they got through it, you could definitely get through it.
One more.
So
Yeah.
passing it forward.
What are you most excited about right now?
Next few collections that are coming up. October is going to be a really good month.
Yes.
Brexit's going to happen on 30th. Wink, wink. 31st. Wink, wink. So that collection is something that I'm really, really looking forward to.
Are you
Lots
ready
of
with the
powerful women
collection?
from that collection?
Are you ready with the collection? Is everything set, ready to go? Talking about discipline and stuff.
Yeah, it'll get done. It'll get done. It always does somehow. So
Okay.
my elves are on it. They'll get it done. But we're going at a good pace. If we're really going to talk practically about it, we're reaching a place where I feel pretty good about this collection. Both of them.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. On that note, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for
It
having
was
me.
wonderful to have you,
Yeah,
and good luck with your shows.
absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
I really appreciate it.
Take
Yeah.
care. See you.
See you.
Thanks.